The train station was nearly empty when Jacob Callahan stepped down onto the wooden platform, boots striking against old planks worn smooth by years of departures and arrivals. Dust swirled in the late afternoon light, catching in the golden beams that slanted across the quiet town of Briar Ridge. He was 3 days late, 3 long, unforgivable days. The cattle drive had gone wrong halfway across the territory. A sudden storm scattered the herd, and one of his hired hands broke a leg trying to save a calf. Jacob had stayed to settle things, to make sure no man was left behind. He had told himself she would understand. After all, she had chosen him without ever meeting him. A mail-order bride. The idea had sounded simple enough when he first placed the advertisement in a distant newspaper. A widowed rancher seeking a wife. Hard work, honest life, room for partnership. He hadn't expected her letters to change him. Her name was Eleanor Whitmore. She wrote with careful script, each word thoughtful and steady. She told him about growing up near the coast, about losing her parents young, about wanting a life that felt meaningful instead of confined to factory work. She asked him questions about the land, about cattle, about sunsets on the prairie. He found himself waiting for her letters more eagerly than he waited for the rain. When he proposed through ink and paper, she accepted. She would arrive on the morning train 3 days ago. And he had not been there. Jacob adjusted his hat and scanned the platform, though he knew she would not still be waiting. The station master, an elderly man with a gray mustache, looked up from his stool. "You Jacob Callahan?" he asked. "Yes, sir." The man sighed. "You missed her." The words landed like a punch. "I know." Jacob replied quietly. Did she say where she was going?" The station master reached beneath the counter and pulled out a folded envelope. "She left this." Jacob's heart thudded painfully as he took it. His name was written on the front in Eleanor's precise handwriting. "She waited half the day," the station master added gently, "kept looking down the tracks like she thought you might come riding in last minute." Guilt burned hot in Jacob's chest. "Then what?" he asked. Town folks started whispering, "You know how it is. A woman alone with luggage, no man to meet her." He shook his head. "She held her chin high, said she'd manage." Jacob swallowed. "Where did she go?" "She rented a room above the Mercantile. Left yesterday morning. Didn't say where." The world felt suddenly too large and empty. Jacob moved to a bench and sat heavily, staring at the envelope in his hands. For a moment, he couldn't bring himself to open it. He had imagined their first meeting countless times. He would be waiting at the platform, hat in hand, perhaps awkward but sincere. She would step down, uncertain but hopeful. He would take her trunk, escort her to the ranch, show her the fields that would become her home. Instead, she had stepped into nothing. He broke the seal. "Mr. Callahan, if you are reading this, then you have finally arrived. I waited as long as I could. I understand that ranch life is unpredictable, and I do not fault you for tending to your responsibilities. But I must admit, standing alone on that platform was harder than I imagined. A few men approached me with questions that felt less than kind. I assured them my fiancé would arrive soon. When the sun began to set, I realized I had to decide whether to keep believing that or begin believing something else. I have learned in my life not to linger where I am not wanted. I do not know what prevented you from coming, and perhaps it was unavoidable. But I cannot begin a marriage with doubt standing between us like an unspoken truth. I have taken a position as a schoolteacher in Willow Creek. It is 2 days' ride east. I intend to make a life there unless given reason to do otherwise. If you truly wish to build the life we described in our letters, you may come and speak to me. Not through paper this time, but in person. Respectfully, Eleanor Whitmore. Jacob read it twice. then a third time. She had not accused him. She had not begged. She had simply drawn a line and stepped beyond it, and something inside him shifted. He had expected anger, tears, perhaps humiliation. He had not expected strength. The mercantile owner confirmed she had left early, carrying her own trunk to the edge of town where a freight wagon was headed east. She didn't cry, the woman behind the counter said, but she looked like she'd closed a door in her heart. Jacob returned to his horse without another word. He did not go home. He rode east. The prairie stretched wide and unforgiving, wind bending tall grass into waves. He rode until sunset painted the sky in bruised shades of purple and orange. He camped beneath open stars, Elinor's letter folded carefully in his pocket. He thought of her standing alone at that platform, strangers staring, whispers circling like vultures. He had failed her before even seeing her face. The next day he rode harder. Willow Creek came into view by late afternoon of the second day. It was smaller than Briar Ridge, quieter, with a single main street and a white, painted schoolhouse near the edge of town. He dismounted and tied his horse outside the general store. A group of children ran past him, laughing, and he followed their path with his eyes. There she was, standing at the schoolhouse door, sleeves rolled slightly, hair pulled back in a simple knot. She was speaking gently to a little girl who clung shyly to her skirt. Jacob stopped breathing. She was not what he had imagined. She was stronger. There was a steadiness in her posture, a calm command in her voice. When the children dispersed, she turned and saw him. For a moment neither moved. He removed his hat slowly. "Miss Whitmore," he said. Her expression did not change. "Mr. Callahan." Her voice was even, polite, distant. "I received your letter. I assumed you might." A breeze lifted a strand of her hair across her cheek. She did not brush it away. "I am sorry," he said simply. She studied him as if weighing the sincerity of the words. "For being late," she asked, "for making you stand alone." Something flickered in her eyes. "You were not there," she said quietly. That is what mattered. He stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. "The drive went wrong. A man was injured. I couldn't leave him." "I do not question your reasons," she replied. "I question what would have happened if I had not left that letter." He hesitated. She continued, "Would you have assumed I lost courage, that I changed my mind?" The truth hung heavy between them. "I don't know," he admitted. She nodded slowly. "Exactly." Silence stretched. The late sun cast long shadows across the yard. "I meant what I wrote," she said. "If you wish to speak, we will speak. But I will not be claimed simply because ink once promised it." "I didn't come to claim you," he said. "I came to ask you to choose." Her chin lifted slightly. "On what grounds?" "On who I am when I am standing in front of you, not who I was on paper." For the first time, a hint of warmth softened her expression. "You realize," she said, "that you are the one who arrived too late." "I realize," he replied. "And that trust, once shaken, is not easily restored." "I know." She folded her hands before her. "Then speak, Mr. Callahan." So he did. He told her about the ranch not as an advertisement, but as truth, about the mornings before dawn, about the loneliness he had not admitted in his letters, about wanting a partner, not just a wife. "I thought being 3 days late would be forgiven," he said. "I didn't understand what those 3 days would feel like to you." "They felt like a lifetime," she said softly. He met her gaze. "Then give me a chance to make it right." A long pause. Children's laughter echoed faintly from behind the schoolhouse. "And if I say no," she asked, "I ride back home and wish you happiness. And if I say yes, then I earn it." Her lips curved faintly at that. "You speak differently than you write," she observed. "I write like a man trying to sound worthy." He admitted. "I speak like one trying to be. She considered him for what felt like an eternity. "Walk with me," she said finally. They walked along the creek as the sky deepened toward evening. She told him about her first day in Willow Creek, about how the townspeople had been cautious but kind, about the children who already tugged at her heart. "I will not leave here lightly," she said. "I wouldn't ask you to," he replied. They stopped at the water's edge. "I needed to know," she said, staring at the rippling surface, "that if I stepped off that train into your life, you would step toward me." "I did," he said quietly. 3 days later, "Yes." She turned to face him fully. "Why should I believe you won't arrive late again?" He thought carefully before answering. "You shouldn't," he said. Her brows lifted slightly. "You should believe what I do next." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the world in twilight blue. "I will remain in Willow Creek for a time," he continued, "if you permit it. I will not pressure you. I will let you see who I am without ink smoothing my edges." "You would stay here?" she asked. "My ranch can manage for a few weeks. I left it in capable hands." She studied him once more, searching for hesitation. "Finding none, you may stay," she said at last. "But understand this, Mr. Callahan. I am no longer a woman waiting on a platform." "I know," he said. "And I do not intend to become one again." "You won't," he promised. Over the next weeks, Jacob rented a small room in town. He repaired the schoolhouse fence without being asked. He helped townsfolk with heavy lifting. He attended Sunday service and sat 2 pews behind Eleanor. He did not push. He listened. He learned that she loved reading poetry aloud to her students, that she feared thunderstorms but hid it well, that she had once dreamed of seeing mountains. One evening, as they stood beneath a sky thick with stars, she spoke softly. "I was humiliated," she admitted, standing there alone. "I know." "No," she said gently. "You don't." He nodded. "You're right. I don't. But I am sorry all the same." She exhaled slowly. "I almost boarded the return train," she confessed. "I almost gave up on the idea of you entirely." "What stopped you?" "My pride," she said with a faint smile. "And a stubborn belief that I deserved answers." He smiled back. "You do." Weeks turned into a month. Trust rebuilt itself in quiet moments rather than grand gestures. One afternoon, a storm rolled in unexpectedly while the children were still in class. Thunder cracked sharply, shaking the windows. Jacob, passing by with supplies, saw Eleanor freeze for a split second before steadying herself for the children's sake. He stepped inside without a word and began helping secure shutters. Their eyes met briefly. She saw that he had come without being called. After the storm passed, she walked him to the door. "You arrived on time today," she said softly. "I intend to